So, I was killing time on the interwebs, looking for my favorite thing. Very desperate women from third world countries looking to date or marry rich American men. They don't need to know I'm not rich. I'm not a doctor. I just play one on Tinder. But all jokes aside, the cynical knight sent me this message. And he says, hey, Gundam, did you know YouTube is changing people's custom thumbnails to an auto-generated thumbnail as an experiment? I didn't question him because YouTube is notorious for having weird little experiments. They're almost like fucking Goebbels in World War II. YouTube had this to say to someone. Who is this guy? Rayo oh my god. Hold on, I gotta do Google Translate. Rayola Arcangarica. That's what Google Translate tells me. I'm probably saying it wrong. You know what? Let's see what the Spanish person says. Oh my god, that was fucking bad, dude. Don't laugh at me. My Spanish teacher in school was named Senor Suaver, and she was a woman. Do you see the problem there? All right, this is probably translated from Spanish poorly, so give me just cut me some slack here. I'd like to know why are not the thumbnails of my video on my channel. What happens is that all my videos had thumbnails. You know what? Fuck this. Google, get out! So basically, this guy hits up YouTube and he wants to know why are the thumbnails on his channel disappearing and being replaced with, I guess, clips from inside the video used as a thumbnail. You know how YouTube does that. YouTube comes back and says, we are running a small experiment where 0.3% of your viewers will see an auto-generated thumbnail instead of your custom thumbnail. We are not removing the ability to create your custom thumbnails, but we hope to gain some insight on auto-generated thumbnails for the future. Good work, YouTube. Good work. Just doing what the fuck you want and not caring. YouTube is essentially Jake Pauling us all, or maybe it's Logan Pauling us. I mean, who thought this was a good idea? Obviously, thumbnails are a thing, because clickbait and a good thumbnail could get you somewhere. I mean, look at the dude who does those Fortnite videos. He literally edits in a picture of Superman with his face looking like he's shocked and goes, oh my god, it's Superman in Fortnite. And he gets millions of views and no one calls him what he is. Le douchebag. That's French. Of course, as you would assume, this has been met with a lot of vitriol from the community. Because frankly, the YouTube community is really getting sick of YouTube itself just doing whatever it pleases and then randomly telling you they did it after they did it. It's kind of like dating a girl, having a sexual relationship with her, and then you realize you have syphilis. And then she goes, hey, I'm just experimenting with not telling guys I have syphilis. Congratulations, asshole. In other dickbag news from out-of-touch rich corporate shit nuggets that haven't got a clue as to what the people want, EA is blaming Zelda for the failure of Mass Effect Andromeda. The dev blatantly lies on camera. Beautiful. So Mark Dare was recently on Game Informer's popular 1-2-3 rapid-fire question series. The Mass Effect developer made a pretty crappy excuse for why Mass Effect failed. We all know why it failed, but nobody wants to own up to the truth of the matter. You know why. Because you can't blame that SJW writing, can you? That team hired on diversity. You see how good diversity is? Where's Captain Planet now? He's f***ing dead because he sucked. There's too much diversity. Do you want to get something done, you need a redneck with a gun.
Do you think Mass Effect Andromeda got a fair shake?
No.
Why not?
I think it came out in a really, really busy window of RPGs, perhaps the busiest window in the history of the games industry, where 5 RPGs launched in the same month.
Can you shorten that up at all?
How about it came out the same month as Zelda?
These rapid-fire questions suck balls. I'm bored out of my mind watching this.
Is this game a Destiny?
This is not a Destiny.
You never lied so damn much.
And somehow people enjoyed it. I feel like I'm being robbed of the one commodity I don't have a lot of, and that's time. And time is the most precious thing a man has. Oh god, it's Grandpa Gundam telling us again how the world blows dick.
How many people died in that Anthem corn maze?
0 confirmed deaths in the corn maze.
Whose idea was that?
It was actually, I believe, Neil Thompson's idea.
Why?
Well, it turns out that you can get a corn maze relatively affordably in Alberta.
The fact that Bioware spent any money to do a corn maze for Anthem shows you where the fuck their thought process is. Hey, well, I got an idea, guys. let's make a corn maze to promote Anthem, because it's really funny and cheap. You motherfuckers need to be putting every dime you got into making this game not suck, because I assure you, a lot of us that were Bioware fans almost certainly hate your guts now. Those who don't hate your guts don't have enough brain cells left or neurons firing off to formulate a thought other than blind positivity. Let me tell you this. Blind positivity in the face of overwhelming odds of reality will get you nowhere but in a grave or disappointed. Maybe after Becky, you sow some wild oats, she'll come back to me and we'll get married and we'll have kids. No, Becky ain't coming back, Bobby.
All of the aliens hostile?
Yes.
Would you even call them aliens?
No, I think that's a inaccurate statement.
We now live in a day and age where the aliens can only be hostile, and then when he's like, do you call them aliens? And they're like, no, that'd be an inaccurate statement. And he said it almost as if the term alien would offend someone. So Mark Darrah basically says that 5 RPGs came out in the month when Mass Effect Andromeda came out, which isn't true. Like, the only thing I remember around the time of Mass Effect Andromeda was next to nothing. I think Ghost Recon's Wildlands was out, and he did mention Zelda, obviously, but I don't remember any RPGs. No major RPGs launched in March of 2017, other than Zelda Breath of the Wild, in which we all know Zelda isn't really an RPG, it's an action-adventure game. So basically, this guy's saying 5 other RPGs came out, and he couldn't name any, obviously. And frankly, using that as an excuse for why Mass Effect Andromeda died a horrible death, and even EA themselves gave up support for it within a month and all planned DLC was gone, was because the game was pure garbage. It was a hot, steaming pile of trash. The animations were horrible. The character's voice acting is atrocious. Here's a tip from me. Maybe if you guys made the game with love, people like me would lend our voices to your game for free. On top of that, there was one point Jason Schreier way back, I've talked about this before, talked about all the internal issues with Mass Effect Andromeda, including the fact that EA forced them to use the Frostbite engine to create an RPG. And everybody knows the Frostbite engine is pretty much the engine that's used for kind of like small areas, in the sense of you can get like a soccer game out of it, you can get a Battlefield game out of it, because it's like you're going from map to map and loading screens. It's not like an entire world. The Frostbite engine was not made for anything other than something along the lines of Battlefield effing 3, and they've just modified it over the years. But EA being EA, they wanted all the money themselves, so of course they're not going to create a new engine for this, and they're not going to, you know, use something like Unreal 4 or Unity, because then they have to pay some money to somebody else. It was just basically moronicism of the highest level that led to Mass Effect Andromeda being a steaming pile of shit, and supposedly them crunching what's supposed to be 5 years of work within 1.5 years, from what this article is saying here. I know, like, they scrapped a lot of the original ideas, and we've all seen the game footage where the alpha looked better than Mass Effect Andromeda, but frankly, typical EA garbage. Whoops, we fucked up and it sucked. And on top of that, to blame Zelda is fucking pathetic. You know, he's like, well, you know, we were unfairly reviewed against Zelda. Come on, guy. You put out a steaming pile of garbage as your diorama for school, and Teddy next door comes in with a working miniature version that's a 1/100 scale of a SpaceX rocket, and you're sitting there going, I shouldn't have gotten an F. But then that's still not even a good analogy, because technically, EA and Bioware had the means to make a good game, but they opted to fuck themselves up at every corner, and thought that just because the game had Mass Effect on it, that the IP would carry a game that was subpar. You just can't do that to people anymore. You can't get away with this. You can't. It's trash. And somehow we're supposed to feel bad for a game company. That's the world we live in. And the last bit of EA sucks news, because it never seems to stop with this company. Like, how come nobody's ever thought of just cleaning house at EA, firing everybody and starting from scratch? Maybe you'd have a better product. You know, like everybody at the top. Just cut off the head of the snake, and maybe the new one that grows back is less simple. Anyway, Amy Hemming leaves EA to start her own indie development studio. She's best known for her work on Jak and Daxter, Legacy of Kain, and she really rose to prominence with Uncharted, the series. Like, that's where everyone lost their minds about her. Long story short, she was working with Visceral Games on the single-player Star Wars game that we all had some slight hope for, because Visceral Games made 2 good Dead Space games before EA forced them to make a really shitty 3rd Dead Space game that really focused on microtransactions and DLC, and subsequently killed the game series. The IP is dead, thanks a lot, EA. And they also forced Visceral to make a Battlefield Hotline, which we all know was probably the worst Battlefield in recent memory, next to what could be Battlefield 5. So they might be off the hook for that, which would be amazing. Visceral Games got shut down, as we all know, and EA focused on games as service and social gaming. So basically, they wanted to make an open world game that focused more on
Loot boxes.
They also stated that the Visceral game with Henning at the helm was too linear, and they really want to push it towards open world games of service, Fallout 76, you catch me? But this is before Fallout 76. Bethesda's following them to keep you in line here. Anyway, that game is pretty much completely shelved. Henning's saying the story is quite interesting, but there's a good shot we'll never see it again. She hopes something will be done, but it probably won't be. Yada ba 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 ba. Same old song and dance. Shelved indefinitely. That pretty much means it's dead and we're never going to see it. Much like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 3. We can all sit here and dream, but it's not happening. Henning is possibly focusing on VR games from what I'm understanding here, with a dev team of 6 to 8 people, and it could go up to a maximum of 15. And in all honesty, if they're going to do VR games, I don't have my hopes up for her popping out anything decent with 15 people. All right, Bethesda had like 100 people work on Fallout 4, and we all know how that ended. The project reportedly that got killed was a lot like Uncharted. Once again, EA said they didn't want to focus on too linear of a game. We all know this is a lie. EA released that really horrible, super linear game called A Way Out. All right, they put that out. They didn't care too much about that because it was a new IP. Star Wars is an IP where EA is 100% sure that if they get the formula right, they could just make hand over fist money, which they're correct. But EA suffers from one problem. They lack vision, they lack creativity, they follow trends now, and they are so obsessed with trying to move loot boxes or airdrops for Battlefield 5, forgive me, loot boxes aren't a thing there, that they can't see the forest for the trees. If you make something genuinely good with people passionate about the project, you could create art and you could get a loyal and strong fan base. That's how Fallout 4 has survived. That's how Bethesda has survived. Their fan base is so rabid for whatever they put out. It doesn't matter that the incremental games they put out, that their games get less creative. Nobody really focuses on that because they're so happy to get something from an IP they love. I'm just saying, if EA actually tried not to be greedy shitbags, they could actually make some money off of Star Wars. If they had half a brain, if I ran EA tomorrow, dude, I would go put money aside. I want Knights of the Old Republic 3. People want this. And let's not forget, if they didn't care about linear, why the hell did they put out Star Wars Battlefront 1? It had no campaign, the shooting mechanic was so dumbed down, and the excuse was, well, we want a game that anyone could play so parents could play with their kids in hopes they could make more money. It was ridiculous. They don't care. They care about nothing. They just sit there, screw up, and oh, you're not going to let us steal your money? All right, we learned our lesson. We won't try again. Next game comes out. Oh, we learned our lesson with Mass Effect Andromeda. We won't try again. I can't do this anymore, man. I don't even want to look at these stories. They disgust me. Disgust me. I'm sorry. I can't be one of those YouTubers that sits there and pretends to be positive about every fucking thing. It's ridiculous. I'm going to look you. I care enough about you to tell you how it actually is. And if we don't do something about this, the video gaming industry is going to be as vapid and dead creatively as the music industry is. EA and Activision Blizzard are no different than McDonald's or Burger King. There's no love in those sandwiches. They follow a formula, they slap it together, they wrap it up in a package and stuff it in your fucking face. I don't think I want to live in a world where video gaming is as devoid of any flavor as a burger from Burger King or McDonald's. You might like that mill grade bullshit full of cornstarch and all sorts of GMOs, but not me, man. I want to taste something with some substance, for God's sakes, to satiate my palate. God, I went too far over the edge. I apologize. I'm going to leave now and scream into a pillow because that's the move to make.